Welcome to Ask the Expert, an award-winning daily series from 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. to help small businesses. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comments of the live feed. If you need any more advice after this, please join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook, where accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. During today's live session, we'll be running a poll, so please engage with it, and at the end I'll reveal how it all went. If you've not already signed up, or maybe it's missed you and you haven't actually heard about it, but next week on the 3rd of March, you can attend the Intuit QuickBooks virtual event, which is called QuickBooks Connect. This event brings together entrepreneurs, small business owners and accountants to grow, learn and connect with each other. I've attended all the previous QuickBooks Connect events. Most of them have been obviously live face-to-face conferences, and this one, due to the pandemic, has to be virtual. But I have to say they've all been fantastic, and I've gone away much more motivated about what I do. I'm packed full of information on how to make what I do a lot more efficient, and I know that the business owners that attended the events as well have also felt the same. So if you haven't already signed up to that, I do recommend you visit the QuickBooks website and sign up for the event. So that's next Wednesday. For those of you who haven't seen me before, my name is Judith Dugdale. I am a chartered accountant and I'm based in the northwest of England. I work for a firm called MHA Moore and Smalley, which is a large independent firm of chartered accountants and business advisors. We cover Cumbria, Lancashire, Merseyside and Greater Manchester, and we deal with everything you would expect a firm of accountants to deal with, and we like to think a bit more. So we do your general compliance work of year-end accounts, tax returns, assistance with VAT returns, P11Ds, all that type of thing, but we also have an in-house payroll team, an outsourced bookkeeping team. We have a team of financial advisors that give advice on investments and pensions. And most importantly, we have a corporate finance and tax strategic planning team who help our businesses from startup all the way through to sale, making sure that we plan properly for inheritance tax and do adequate and appropriate tax planning, both in the short and the long term. My role within Moore and Smalley is slightly different to the rest of the corporate team in terms of I deal with people on cloud accounting software. So I head up the digital solutions team, and we have two main roles. One is to service clients who use cloud accounting software, so doing the normal year-end stuff, tax returns, that type of thing. But we also help clients from around the firm and new clients to the firm in setting up new bookkeeping systems. And our role is to digitalise their bookkeeping. So that uses QuickBooks Online together with other third-party apps such as Receipt Bank, Futurely, Fluidly, and a whole host of other apps that are specific to sectors such as Arthur Online for rental, Unleashed in the manufacturing side. So our aim is to make our clients work in the most efficient way possible using a whole array of different pieces of software that are out there. And we help them set them up, and then we help maintain them and give them ongoing support and advice. Because we use a whole range of software, and particularly the things that come out the back end, so things that allow us to do cash flow forecasts and projections, that enables us to give a lot of ongoing advice to our clients and try to be as proactive as we can be. And that's really coming into its fore now. So we've got on Monday, Boris announced the latest plan for the staged end to lockdown. So we've been working this week a lot with clients in terms of what that means for them. And I just thought it was worth mentioning today, before I get onto the questions, just some of the things that we're talking to our clients about, which may or may not help you. I appreciate that some of you watching today will already be open. If you're consultants or depending on the sector you're in, the lockdown news ending over the next few months might not really impact you. But I also know there'll be an awful lot of you watching today who have just got the green light that their business can reopen. So what we need to do, if you are one of those businesses that has a date now where hopefully you can open. And the good news is the government have said that 7 days before those dates, they will confirm that they're going ahead, because obviously there could be a spike somewhere, which means that things need to be delayed, but they have said they're going to give a week's notice if there is going to be any change. So now is the time to plan. So looking at your plan, it needs to be a combination of when can you open, what that means in terms of communicating with your customer base, communicating with your supplier base. When you shut in November, December time, many people will have used up most of their supplies that they had. I'm thinking if you're maybe a hairdresser, you may have used up a lot of your colourings and your shampoos and conditioners and all that side of supplies. If you're in hospitality, you definitely will have used up all your food supplies and a lot of the alcohol and drinks that you had, your wet supplies. So you need to now plan about getting those supplies back in so that when you open, you're ready. Obviously, ordering those supplies could impact on your cash flow, because I imagine most of your suppliers will want paying upfront because they themselves have been going through the pandemic and lost all their orders. So their cash flow will be tight. So it's really important just to check with suppliers on payment terms, just in case they're not going to be quite the same as they were pre-pandemic. If cash flow, when you look at that, is going to be a bit of an issue to get yourselves up and running, there are things that you can look into. The government announced back in March and April last year about the business bounce back loan and the CBILS loan, which is for the larger organisations. They still exist and they are still out there, and the applications are open until the end of March. What some people don't know is that even if you applied for one of those but didn't necessarily take the maximum you could, you can apply for a top-up. And I believe for the business bounce back loan, this is particularly easy to do. So let's say the business bounce back loan, for example, that was the amount you could borrow was based on your turnover. So if you didn't take all of what you could take, you can go back to your bank and ask for a top up, which would then probably provide you with enough cash to get you through the first few months of reopening. There is also obviously furlough support, and that furlough support is currently due to end before all the lockdown businesses will have reopened. So it is quite important that we look at that to make sure that sorry, my computer just went down there for a second. So with the furlough, what I was saying is that at the moment it's due to end before the businesses will all be open. But we've been told that Rishi Sunak is going to address this in the budget next week. My understanding is that he will extend the current furlough scheme so that it goes beyond all those hospitality businesses in particular reopening, because obviously they can't open fully until the proposed date, I think it's the 17th of May. So we do need to make sure that they've got some support in April and May, when actually at the moment it looks like that support might end. I would also suspect that he will put through some other support in terms of maybe some more grants out there for businesses. Obviously the budget is on next week, and everyone in the accountancy profession is watching this with bated breath, as I'm sure all you business owners are as well, in terms of there could be some changes to tax rates. Particularly people are thinking that capital gains tax might change. We don't know. We have no tip-offs, unfortunately, so I can't give you any inside track. My personal thought, and it is just a personal thought, is that I think he possibly will do very little in this budget in terms of changing tax rates. We really need to nourish businesses that are reopening, and impacting them with lots of extra tax charges could hamper that recovery. So I'm hopeful that there won't be masses of changes, and we will maybe get some announcements to come in later in the year, or maybe in 2022. So hopefully no big changes there. The one other thing I just wanted to touch on as well is about your employees. If you have employees and you're due to reopen in, say, May or the end of April, and those employees have been on furlough, just have a look at how many holidays they have taken, because you need to make sure that you're not storing up a bit of an issue, in that by the time you open up, you've got all your staff then saying, I've got lots of holidays that I need to take. I haven't taken my full holiday entitlement. Employees can take holidays while they're on furlough. So I would have a look at that and just make sure that when you reopen, you're not going to have a big impact of people suddenly wanting to take time off when you need them in your premises, your hospitality venue, your nail salon, wherever it might be. You'll need those employees in working for you once you're through lockdown. So hopefully you've had a few little tips there that will help. What I'll do now is I'll start taking some questions. We've had a few through already, so please keep them coming, and they can be on anything to do with reopening, they can be to do with QuickBooks, whatever questions you feel I may be able to help you with, please pop them through, and I'll do my very best. So the first question has come from Beaumont from Facebook Messenger. And this question is, how should we be planning getting the workforce back to work? Full-time work hours, furlough, their mental health, etc. This is a great question, and it's really going to be quite unique to each individual employer. So as I just mentioned, you will have some employees that maybe haven't taken all their holiday entitlement because they had nowhere to go, or maybe they were already furloughed, so they didn't take lots of holidays and book them off because they were effectively at home anyway. And so, as I said before, you need to look at that and engage with your staff about when they are going to take those holidays going forward. Furlough, I think you need to really look at when you're opening, how many of your staff you need in. And obviously, if you've only got one or two members of staff, it's a lot easier than if you've got multiple members of staff. But don't forget that flexible furlough scheme, we're expecting to stay in place for a time. So maybe bring back people on less than full-time hours to begin with, or maybe look at some of your staff who may be struggling with having to shield still, maybe leave those at home on furlough for a bit longer and bring the ones that have had vaccines or younger and keen to get back. Have a look at that side of it. Mental health wise, it could be quite a bit of a change for people that have been on furlough for such a very long time, depending on what industry you're in. Some people have been furloughed for such a long time, and suddenly coming back into work could affect their mental health. But equally, coming back could be a positive on their mental health. So I think it needs to be you engaging with your staff to try and find what suits them best. And maybe mixing up some of the hours if you can do, so that it's not straight back into a 9 to 5 or a 10 to 6 or whatever that used to be. Maybe looking at different ways of working together which benefit both you, your customers, and your employees. The next question I have is Gail from Instagram direct message. This says, are there any proven or reliant methods generally used to increase a value of a business? It's a difficult one, this, Gail, because it really depends on your business and what value you're trying to get to at the end, and what size of business you are and who you're thinking of maybe selling to. What is the point of increasing the value? So typically, the most valuable businesses are the ones with the best profits. It's not about turnover in particular, although you have to be a certain size to get a certain level of value within your organisation. It's also, value comes down to how easy it would be for somebody else to take over your business and run that business with the same level of profitability that you get. So the value of a business where it's, for example, if I was running my own accountancy firm as it's just me, maybe doing bookkeeping and things like that for a client, there is very little value in my business to an external person because it's me. And you take me out of that equation, you need to find another me to run that business. So the value in that is an awful lot less than, say, the value of MHA Moore and Smalley, who I work for, where it's an organisation of 300 plus employees, all delivering financial services advice to an array of clients. You take one or two of those owners out of that business, there are enough people still in there to carry on the functioning of that business, and therefore there is much more value in that business. The key we always say to clients when we're doing looking at a value of a business and how they can increase that value, one of the first things we say to those business owners is you need to make yourself almost redundant to that business. So you need to delegate tasks and roles to people who work for you, so that if you were to disappear, that business can run without you. And it's really easy to start doing that. It's easy in principle to start doing that. It's very hard for people to let go. So a lot of small business owners are big entrepreneurs, and they can quite be in charge of every little detail as well. So the steps are to slowly start passing on more information and more tasks to people who work for you. And the best way of doing this is to start being away from the business a bit more often. So maybe going down to 4 days a week, or maybe even making that even smaller, so half a day a week less. And you slowly build that up, and you start maybe focusing on different areas of your business. Take yourself away from the day-to-day running, and you focus on some areas of further growth. And while you're taking yourself away from the day-to-day business, you are then enabling everybody else to run that business for you, so that if you wanted to sell that business in the future, somebody looking at it would go, well, I don't need Judith in this business, it will run without her. And that intrinsically gives you a lot more value to your business. Next question is Tegan on Twitter direct message. Tegan says, I run a salon. Is there any visibility when businesses like mine can reopen? In terms of planning for the future, I want to make the most of the open days. Any tips on how to manage the expenses to stay cash flow positive? So first of all, salon, I'm assuming either hair salon or nail salon. So I think you're classed as non-essential retail. And my understanding is you can reopen from the 12th of April. And it's open, there's no limit on the hours that you can be open. So you've got, 5-6 weeks to start, 5.5 weeks maybe, to start planning that. In terms of tips on how to manage the expenses to stay cash flow positive, I guess, as I said at the start, look at your supply levels. So if you're a hairdressing salon, I suspect if your customers are going to be anything like myself, I want to get my roots done. I want my hair highlighting. So you're going to have, I think, a lot of people that are coming in for that type of work, as well as the normal cut and blow dries. So you need to make sure you have plenty of that in stock. Now, you don't necessarily have to go mad and buy loads of it all up front. I guess it's a case of speaking to your suppliers about what's the lead-in times to get that stock in. And you could maybe buy minimum levels to start with, and then at the end of every couple of days, start reordering, so that as you get the income in from your customers, you can then reorder. And I guess if it's a nail salon or whatever, you'll have the same thing. You'll need to make sure you've got enough nail varnishes, or if you do eyebrows, enough of the eyebrow kits. All that side of things is having a look at what you've got in stock. If you're fully booked up as soon as you open, which I have to tell you, I think if you're any type of those salons, you're going to be, how quickly will that stock last? And therefore, when do you have to put in new orders to ensure that the new stock comes, so that there's no downtime in terms of delivering for those customers? And as I said, try and spread that cash flow. I don't normally advocate using things like credit cards, but if to get you over a small hurdle of cash flow problems, you could buy some stock on a credit card, as long as you can plan into your cash flow repaying those credit card card balances as soon as possible to avoid extra interest, that is possibly something to look at as well. Andreas from Instagram direct message said, if I take a CBILS loan now, will I still get the 12-month repayment holiday? Yes, my understanding is for both the bounce back loan and the CBILS, you get a 12-month holiday built into that. So if you take it up in March, it's next March before you have to make those repayments. Those terms haven't changed. It's obviously, they did announce, I think back in October time it was, that they originally were 6 years long, the loans. They've actually said that you can talk to your banks about extending those loan periods as well, up to 10 years. So that's something to bear in mind as well if you're thinking of doing one of those applications. What I would say is, particularly on the CBIL side, it's taken a long time to turn over and turn around those applications. So given that you have to have your application in and being worked on and some sort of notification from the bank that they've accepted the application and are working on it, I'd get any application in as soon as possible, because our experience is that we're submitting application on CBILS and it can take a week or two for the bank to even recognise that it's been submitted to them, and you really do need that acknowledgement of them pre-31st of March. Now, you never know, the British Business Bank, which administers these loans and sets all the rules and things, we're hoping that they may give an extension to that 31st of March for businesses who are not going to be reopening until May or June. Obviously, we've got things like nightclubs and things that can't open until I think it's the 17th of June at the very earliest. So applying for a loan now might not really be in the forefront of their minds. So we are hopeful that there will be an extension to the business bounce back loans and CBILS, but as I said earlier, there's been no confirmation of that. The next question is from Lorraine via Facebook Messenger. She says, I work as a freelance VFX artist. I've been reading up on cash flow forecasting tutorials to plan my financials better. The options available seem quite complex and mostly for bigger businesses. Can you help me on what are the core things to focus on, given I'm a relatively small business? So yes, simplistically wise, what you need to do is look at your cash flow balance today. So that is your balance as at the bank account. Look at what you know is going to be coming out of your bank in the next few days, or payments that you have committed to. You knock them off that bank balance. I suspect you'll have maybe money coming in once a month if you're a freelance artist, or at different points each month. So plan those in. And very simplistically, you can look at where you would be at the end of the month. Now, ideally, you want to break that cash flow forecast up into weeks. And depending on how much information you have, you might even break that up into daily. Now, you can do this on a spreadsheet. You don't need to get fancy software. If you set up a spreadsheet with an opening cash flow at the top, so that's your bank balance at the top, knock off anything that's coming out that day in terms of expenses, and then adding back in any income you might have, and then that gives you a closing cash flow position for that day. And then the next column along in your spreadsheet is the next day. Now, like I said, you could do it on a weekly basis, you could do it on a monthly basis. It depends on how much detail you want to go into. But I would certainly say probably weekly is important. Lots of people get fixated on planning for a year in advance. With our clients at the moment, we're doing 12-week rolling cash flows with them. So that's a 3-month period, and it seems to be a lot easier to plan 3 months ahead than it is, particularly coming out of a COVID pandemic. It's hard to plan where you'll be in a year because we don't really know where we're going to be in 3 months' time. So I'd say keep it simple. Try not to look too far ahead. And the most important tip I can give you is to revisit those cash flows all the time. So if you're doing weekly cash flows, you put in what you think is going to be next week and the next 11 weeks after that. Next week, go back in and update it because things will constantly change. I've got a message YouTube live from Stephen. And this says, are we able to use the furlough to help pay towards holiday pay? My initial thought on this, Stephen, is that yes, you can do, but it's still up to the maximum 80%, but you have to give them full holiday pay. You can't limit it to 80%. The rules around holiday pay is that they're entitled to that full amount. So you don't have, when people have been put through furlough, the government were giving you 80% of the pay. Now, you have been able to negotiate with your staff to say, we can't top that up. We can't afford to do that. So we're going to have to reduce your pay down so that it's stuck at the 80%. With holiday pay, you need to pay them the full amount. So I hope that clears that up a little bit for you. If you want a bit more information, if you go to gov.uk and search furlough, all the rules are in there. And there is a section on holiday pay, which hopefully will help you quite a bit. Got the next question, which I think is possibly going to be the last question given the time. This is from Chris on Facebook Live. Chris says, Judith, can we connect? There may be an opportunity to cross-promote each other's offering as they fit together quite nicely. I'm in the world of providing IT solutions for startups. Yes, Chris, absolutely no problem. Probably best connecting with me via LinkedIn. If you go onto LinkedIn, you'll see me on there under Judith Dugdale, and just check that it's my job is chartered accountant working at Moore and Smalley. For anybody else, that just brings me to the point that promoting each other's offerings is a really good way of trying to boost yourself. So look for opportunities wherever you are to engage with other people, be that on social media, be that face-to-face, to try and promote you and what you're doing, and looking at ways that you can cross-promote with other people. So Chris, thanks for that, because it's a really good tip for everybody to look at ways that they can engage with each other. So today, the question that was asked at the start in the poll was, have you pivoted your business in the last year? 40% of you said yes, and 60% said no, which I'm not surprised about, because obviously some businesses have not had to pivot as much as others. And the easiest way to pivot at the moment is if you have a business that you can promote online. That's a really easy way to pivot in terms of getting out on social media content, maybe developing a website, or if you can't quite afford to set up a website to sell things on, you could look at selling via eBay, Amazon, Etsy, all those different platforms that are online. It's a really, really good way of getting things that are stuck in a shop online, and I've seen it across lots of industries as well. Where I am up in the Ribble Valley, there's a lady that she's actually my hairdresser. She runs a big hairdressing salon, and throughout lockdown, she has created her own range of beauty products as well, and selling her normal hair salon items like conditioner and Oplex and all that side of things. She sells them online now, and she's built up she's done phenomenally well by engaging on social media. So she's really managed to pivot her business to enable her to keep generating income while her salon is closed. So it's not necessarily just if you're a normal shop putting that online. Think about what you do. Can you sell that in a different way? So yeah, I know we're coming out of lockdown, but for some of us, there's a long way to go. So yeah, look at different ways that you can pivot your business. Thank you very much for all your questions today. If you do have any further questions, please get in touch with the QuickBooks support team on Facebook, or you can contact me at Moore and Smalley using the email digitalsolutions@mooreandsmalley.co.uk. And if you need any advice on Brexit, which I haven't really covered today, but I have covered in previous sessions, it's a real hot topic at the moment. And on our homepage, we do have a Brexit hub with loads of information, which is really worth a visit if you are impacted at all importing, exporting to the EU. Our website is www.mooreandsmalley.co.uk. So coming up on Ask the Expert tomorrow is Rupert Morrison. He is the founder and CEO of Concentra Analytics. It's a fast growth SaaS company with award-winning software products that enable businesses to capture, manage, and analyze data to improve their operations and execute strategies more effectively. So that sounds really interesting to me. So make sure you tune in and learn more about productizing analytics for management. Please don't forget to join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB group on Facebook, and also register for QuickBooks Connect if you haven't already done so. You'll be able to find a link to QuickBooks Connect in the comments below. Have a lovely day, everybody. Thank you.